Sure. Here is section 1 of the script, exactly 500 words, to the point and focused on high-quality psychological insights, setting up the emotional and narrative tension as discussed. Most people think they understand how attraction works, but few realize how deeply psychology shapes every glance, every heartbeat. For women, attraction isn't just visual. It's neurological. When a girl feels emotionally seen, her brain lights up in ways science still struggles to map. Her body reacts not to looks, but to attention, safety, unpredictability. The truth is, attraction for women often begins in silence, in the way someone listens. Studies show that when a woman is drawn to someone, her pupils dilate, her voice softens unconsciously, and even the angle at which she tilts her head shifts. These are not choices. They are instincts. Her limbic system, the part of the brain responsible for emotion and memory, stores past emotional imprints. If a man mirrors a pattern that feels familiar, even slightly dangerous or forbidden, it triggers deep, unresolved emotional circuits. There's also oxytocin, the bonding hormone. In women, it floods the brain during emotional connection, not just during physical touch. This means when a man listens carefully, remembers small details, and mirrors her energy, her brain starts associating him with safety and intimacy, even if they've never touched. Meanwhile, dopamine spikes when anticipation is involved. So, the more uncertain or unavailable someone feels, the more addictive the emotional loop becomes. Girls aren't hard to understand. They're just emotionally layered. What feels like sudden attraction is often the result of subtle psychological cues stacking up. A lingering pause in conversation. A shared laugh that seems too natural. A compliment that goes beneath the surface. Most men miss these signs. But those who don't, those who instinctively respond with emotional intelligence, they unlock something rare. For Elena, things had always been clear. She was intuitive, strong-willed, emotionally aware. She believed she could read people easily, spot fakes from a mile away. And when it came to love, she trusted her gut more than anything. It had never failed her. At least, not until she met David. He didn't stand out at first, but something about his presence felt off-script. It was in the way he spoke with intention, how he seemed completely uninterested in impressing anyone, yet left everyone curious. He didn't chase her. He didn't flatter her. But he saw her, in ways that her partner Liam hadn't in months. No forced questions, no polite check-ins. Just attention, raw, unscripted, and oddly disarming. That was the moment something shifted. Not because she wanted it to, but because her body responded before her mind could process it. Psychology isn't magic. It's patterns, triggers, hormones. But when you're in the middle of it, it feels like fate. Elena never meant to question her loyalty. But questioning isn't a decision. Sometimes, it's just a glance, a silence, a shared moment you can't explain. By the time the mind catches up, the heart has already started rewriting the story. And that's exactly how stories like this begin. Let me know when you're ready for Section 2, 500 words. Here is Section 2, exactly 500 words, continuing the story with no repetition, direct and high in narrative quality. Elena's relationship with Liam had always looked perfect from the outside. They shared a routine, a quiet rhythm of life that was safe, predictable, and built on years of shared plans. But somewhere between shared bills and silent dinners, the spark had dulled. Conversations became logistical. Affection turned into obligation. Liam was loyal, steady, but emotionally distant. He loved in actions, not in presence. Elena felt it every time he looked at his phone during dinner, every time she had to repeat herself just to be heard. When she met David, it wasn't dramatic. He was introduced through work, casual and unassuming. But his energy was different. He didn't try to be charming. He was observant. He noticed when she changed her hair. He remembered how she took her coffee. Small things Liam used to care about until he stopped. David asked questions that weren't surface level. Not, "How was your day?" but, "What's been weighing on you lately?" No one had asked her that in years. At first, she laughed more around David. It felt refreshing, harmless. She told herself it was innocent. But then came the text messages. The 11 p.m. conversations about music, about childhood memories, about things she'd never even told Liam. The emotional intimacy built slowly until she realized she looked forward to hearing from David more than seeing her own partner. He became a mental escape, a safe place she hadn't known she was missing. One afternoon, he told her she seemed different, like someone who had forgotten how to be seen. That sentence stayed with her. Liam had never said anything like that. She found herself dressing with more care before work, checking her phone with nervous energy, playing back David's words in her mind long after their conversations ended. It was no longer harmless. David never made a move. That was the most dangerous part. He respected boundaries on the surface. But every conversation carried undertones. Every laugh lingered too long. It wasn't what he did. It was what he didn't say. The absence of pursuit made her lean in. The silence between texts made her crave the next one. She started comparing Liam to David, noticing every way Liam fell short, every moment he didn't look her in the eye, didn't ask how she felt. One evening, Liam asked her if everything was okay. She said yes without thinking, but her voice cracked. That was when she knew she was slipping. Not physically yet, but emotionally, she was somewhere else. With someone else. This wasn't an affair, she told herself. Not technically. There was no betrayal in words. No kisses, no lies. But her mind had moved. Her heart had drifted. And in relationships, sometimes that's worse. Emotional distance can't be measured in miles, but in silences. And hers were getting longer by the day. She told herself she could stop at any time, that it hadn't gone too far. But denial always sounds like control until it isn't. Ready for Section 3 when you are. Here is Section 3, exactly 500 words, continuing the story with sharp focus and emotional intensity without repeating any earlier content. It happened on a Thursday. There was no plan, no intent, just a moment that got away from her. They had met to talk, nothing more. At least, that's what she told herself. But the air was different that day. The conversation shifted from casual to vulnerable too fast. She opened up about a dream she'd had the night before, one where she was standing on a cliff, unsure whether to jump or turn back. David didn't laugh. He said, "You already jumped the moment you started dreaming about the edge." And that was it. The kiss wasn't asked for. It wasn't resisted. It just happened. And the world around her went quiet. The worst part wasn't the act. It was how easy it felt. No guilt in the moment. No hesitation. Just release. Like she'd been holding her breath for years without knowing. In that brief silence afterward, she wanted to justify it. She wanted to make it mean something. But she knew what it was, a line crossed. Not by force, not by mistake, but by choice. The guilt didn't hit immediately. It crept in hours later, when she lay next to Liam that night and couldn't look at him. When he reached for her and she flinched inside. He didn't notice. Or maybe he did, but chose not to say anything. Either way, she couldn't meet his eyes. Everything about him suddenly felt unfamiliar. She hated herself for it. She started avoiding David. Not out of shame, but confusion. He didn't chase. He acted as though nothing happened. That made it worse. She needed it to mean something. Instead, it hung in the air, unnamed, like a ghost in every room she walked into. Liam, unaware, became warmer, more attentive, almost as if he could sense the threat but didn't know where it was coming from. He began asking about her day again, bringing her coffee, laughing at her jokes. And she hated herself even more. Internally, she began to spiral. She felt trapped between two versions of herself, the one who had been faithful for years and the one who had let a moment define her. The psychological toll was relentless. Studies show that women experience deeper emotional dissonance after infidelity because their betrayal is often tied to unmet emotional needs rather than physical impulse. She didn't cheat because she lacked love. She cheated because she felt invisible. Her brain, flooded with oxytocin after the kiss, had bonded her to David. But the same chemical now made her hyper-aware of what she might lose. And that's the paradox. Infidelity often awakens the very feelings people thought were dead. Suddenly, she saw Liam's quiet loyalty not as dullness, but as something she had taken for granted. But that realization didn't undo what was done. It didn't erase the memory. It didn't silence the voice in her head that kept asking, "What happens now?" Because the truth was, she had no idea. Let me know when you're ready for Section 4. Here is Section 4, exactly 500 words, concluding the story with emotional clarity, consequence, and depth, while maintaining a crisp and focused tone. Liam found the message by accident. A simple preview on her phone screen while it charged on the kitchen counter. It wasn't explicit. Just one line from David. "I still think about that night." That was all it took. He didn't say a word. He simply placed the phone face down and walked away. That night, he was colder, quieter. He didn't ask, didn't accuse. But the shift in his energy was immediate. She knew he knew, and the silence that followed was heavier than any confrontation. Days passed. She waited for him to explode, to demand the truth, to break something. But Liam wasn't that kind of man. He processed inwards. He observed. He withdrew. And in doing so, he forced her to confront what she had done without offering her a way to explain it. She considered confessing, laying everything out, hoping for closure. But she didn't. Because deep down, she knew he didn't want to hear it. David, meanwhile, had started to pull away. What once felt intimate now felt transactional. He stopped asking how she was. His messages grew shorter. And just like that, the illusion collapsed. He had never truly offered her an escape, just a moment of distraction. The connection she thought was rare revealed itself as temporary. And now she had nothing. No clarity. No comfort. Just the weight of choices made too quickly and emotions trusted too blindly. Psychologists say women often feel the consequences of infidelity more deeply over time. Unlike impulsive betrayal driven by lust, emotionally driven infidelity leaves scars that surface in silence, in reflection. Guilt doesn't always show up as regret. Sometimes it appears as loss of identity, as disconnection from oneself. She began to question everything: why she needed more, why she couldn't wait, why she traded consistency for chaos. Liam didn't leave immediately. He stayed for months. But he was never really there. They moved through daily life as strangers. He slept with his back to her. He stopped asking about her day. And still she said nothing. Not because she didn't care, but because she didn't know if anything she said would fix it. Eventually, one morning, he left a note. No goodbye, no explanation. Just 4 words. "You stopped choosing us." She kept that note. Not out of sentimentality, but as proof. Proof that she broke something real. That she had a choice and she chose wrong. Not because she wanted to hurt anyone, but because she mistook emotional hunger for connection. It took losing both of them to realize that what she was searching for was never in David. It wasn't even about Liam. It was about the version of herself she no longer recognized. She wrote a letter to Liam weeks later. She never sent it. She wrote it for herself. In it, she said the one thing she had never said out loud. "In trying to feel loved, I forgot how to love." And that was the only truth left. Let me know if you'd like the full video script formatted for voiceover or editing next.